What is going on, YouTube? So I wanted to come back today. I've been meaning to do this for a little while, but with my first edition of, oh, sorry about that, with the first edition of my 2021 NFL mock draft. Sorry, I ran into computer problems there for a second. I'm just going through the first round today. I want to do something similar to the NBA where I go through just the first round and then dig a little bit deeper after I get through kind of like a big board, just going through position by position as the season moves along. But we're at about the halfway point of the college football season and then getting close to the halfway point of the NFL regular season. So let's go ahead and go on through. I linked below where I got the draft order from. It's from CBS Sports' latest mock draft and Sportsline odds. After the NFL, I believe we are between week 7 and 8. So let's go ahead and get started here. So off the bat, I have the Jets picking first with the obvious selection here, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback from Clemson. Whoever wins or whoever gets the first overall pick, unless it's a team that really doesn't need a quarterback, which maybe if the Bengals got the first overall pick, I don't really know who that would be outside of them. Every other team really needs a quarterback and would take Trevor Lawrence probably first overall. The Jets desperately need help almost everywhere. But, start from the ground up. I believe they have 2 first-round picks. So you can kind of shore up the rest of the team from there. Sam Darnold, I think, will be out the door before too long. His accuracy problems that kind of were there at USC are really shining through in the NFL. So at least the Jets have a really good building block to start from. At number 2, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting the offensive tackle out of Oregon, who's set to make his debut not this weekend, but next, with the Pac-12. Penei Sewell. I think Sewell is one of the top 3 prospects in this class. Outside of the strong quarterback class, I think he's about the best there is. The Jags could use a quarterback here. I think it's kind of a toss-up. They do have I think they have at least one other pick in the first round. So maybe something to trade down or get, trade up for maybe in the middle of the first round. But there's a few other quarterback options I think that could fall in the first or the second round. And it's hard to find an offensive line anchor. This is for the type of player that you would get out of Sewell. It's kind of once every single draft, if not every other year, for that quality of an offensive lineman. Number 3, I have the Bengals giving Joe Burrow some help at the skill positions and taking Jamar Chase, wide receiver out of LSU. I know that this would be a really popular pick, and there are definitely some other fits that the Bengals could go with here. And I will mention this: if the Bengals are picking after a team that selects Penei Sewell, then that probably takes their first player off the board. But obviously, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase had a great connection at LSU. The Bengals are in dire need of getting a primary target in the receiving game, and I think Jamar Chase gives them that. Number 4, I have the New York Giants going the quarterback route, selecting Justin Fields, quarterback out of Ohio State. The Giants are in a giant mess right now in the NFC East, where whatever team it looks like makes the playoffs out of that division, unless one team heats up down the stretch, it's not going to be a good team. So, I mean, it would be a really intriguing pairing for the Giants to have, a backfield duo of Saquon Barkley once he recovers from his injury, and then Justin Fields. I think a lot of the questions about Justin Fields' game will get answered this year. He looked really good in his season debut against Nebraska, and he'll probably not fall out of the top 5, I would imagine, come next spring. Number 5, I have the Denver Broncos going with linebacker out of Penn State, Micah Parsons. The Broncos do need help at linebacker. They're going to be pretty thin this offseason. Micah Parsons sat out the 2020 season through COVID-19, which is a shame. He's a really good linebacker, and it would have been nice to see him play. Maybe would have helped out Penn State before they got upset by Indiana. But I like the fit. Micah Parsons had a really solid 2019 season, and he was one of the better linebackers, even going all the way back to 2018. I do think he's the best linebacker in this class in what is a pretty mediocre linebacker class. At number 6, I have the Atlanta Falcons getting some edge help, taking Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end out of Miami. A lot of people would like the fit with the team I'm picking next for Gregory Rousseau, but I think he is the best edge rusher, defensive end on the board. And the Falcons, while they need help similar to a team like the Jets or the Jags at a number of positions, they are kind of a mess this year. I think Rousseau would give them a solid foundation for the defense. I believe he sat out the 2019 season again, opted out through COVID-19, but had something like, 15 and a half sacks or tackles for loss last season. So he's a proven talent, and we'll see how he comes out for the 2021 NFL draft. Number 7, the Miami Dolphins with their first pick. I have them selecting Dylan Moses, linebacker out of Alabama. While the Dolphins, at least among the first 7 teams I'm picking here, maybe outside of the Bengals, are improving the fastest. They still have a plethora of needs that they have to address on both sides of the ball at a number of the skill positions. Interior line, but I think linebacker is going to be the one that takes the cake here, just because Dylan Moses is such an explosive athlete, could be a huge difference maker for their defense. Number 8, I have the Washington football team going with the recently tragically injured wide receiver out of Alabama, Jalen Waddle. The Washington football team actually looked really good for a little bit against a really hapless Dallas Cowboys defense last weekend. I think it gives some promise. I think that they have a lot of potential under Ron Rivera. It's just going to take a little bit of time to put all the pieces together. By no means is Kyle Allen the quarterback of their future. But I think whoever is the quarterback of the future for them, give them a solid, one of the most explosive skill position weapons for sure in this draft class. I think the best wide receiver would come down to Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle. So if he comes back strong from the injury from, I believe it's a ankle fracture and then a high ankle sprain that he suffered against Tennessee, comes back strong, should still fall around the top 10 to the top 15. Number 9, I have the Minnesota Vikings going the offensive line route. Again, a number of ways they could go on the offensive side of the ball, but I have them taking offensive guard or center out of Ohio State, Wyatt Davis. I think the second best lineman in this class. The Vikings, if they're going to try Kirk Cousins for at least another year, might as well give him a little bit more protection. The Vikings offensive line is not very good. And Wyatt Davis is a sizable offensive guard that can come in and make an immediate impact for them. At number 10, I have the Miami Dolphins also going the offensive line route. Put a little bit of protection in front of Tua Tagovailoa with the former offensive tackle of his, Alex Leatherwood. Again, a lengthy offensive tackle. I think he's probably about the second or third best offensive tackle in this class. And it helps shore up an offensive line for the Dolphins that, again, while improving, I think, you have a quarterback that's been really prone to lower body injuries, including the one that ended his career at Bama. So put some protection invest in him. At number 11, Carolina Panthers. I have them going the cornerback route. I think that's the obvious one for them with Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama. It's going to probably be between Patrick Surtain, Sean Wade, and Caleb Farley, who's the top cornerback in this class. But I think Surtain would be the safe option right now. Having a solid season at Bama, I think he's one of the most physically gifted corners in this class, and he's probably going to be the best option for a staple for the Panthers secondary from here on out. I think that's a Panthers team that could be really intriguing moving forward with Joe Brady and Matt Rule, kind of bringing a little bit of taste of LSU and Baylor to the NFL. So again, I like the fit. Panthers have beat some good teams this year, and I think they're improving, but they're going to have a lot of work to do next offseason. Number 12, the Dallas Cowboys. Again, any number of ways they could go on the defensive side of the ball, but it's really hard to ignore the secondary problem. I've been going with Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech. Addressing the secondary is probably the first thing they should do in this draft. And if you're picking in the top 15 about, you're probably going to have a good option of cornerbacks. So that would probably be the obvious move for the Dallas Cowboys to go. And with the way things are trending for them right now with Andy Dalton injured, Dak out for the season, they might be picking higher than 12. I could very well see that. Number 13, I have the LA Chargers going the offensive line route. This is probably my biggest reach out of the first 13 picks. But Trey Smith, offensive guard or interior lineman out of Tennessee. Trey Smith's draft stock's been trending up recently out of an offensive line that's pretty inconsistent in front of Jarrett Garantano at Tennessee. Trey Smith's been one of the more consistent pieces. He's also one of the more physically gifted, fundamentally sound, higher motor offensive guards in this class. Realistically, you're probably looking at a mid to late first round pick. But again, Chargers have a young quarterback, Justin Herbert, not as injury prone as I was saying for Tua earlier, but again, invest in him. He's got a solid set of skill position weapons around him, so just invest in the O-line. Number 14, I have the Detroit Lions. Again, a pretty obvious route they can take here. Give Matthew Stafford a little bit more help at the skill positions and do it with a guy that can kind of line up all over. And also familiar territory from the Big Ten. I have them taking Rondale Moore, wide receiver out of Purdue. We haven't seen a whole lot of Rondale Moore since his freshman campaign. Got injured and ended up taking a medical redshirt after about 4 games last year. But even those 4 games, he was still on around the same pace he was when he was a first-team All-American as a true freshman. So, shorter receiver, but just in the new way the game's being played now with stretching the field and, just having a lot of those shorter wide receivers that can be constant threats. I think Rondale Moore is going to be a good fit at kind of around the mid-first round. Number 15, this is my first trade. If you actually look at the draft order from Sportsline, CBS Sports, they have the Raiders picking at 15 and the Eagles picking at 16. But given that Trey Lance is still on the board here for me, I have the Eagles sliding up one spot. Again, another reach for me, not necessarily a reach, but kind of a bold prediction for the draft. Trey Lance, in all likelihood, is not going to fall out of the top 15, but with a quarterback class that's going to have a lot of volatility, but I think a little bit more depth than most people anticipate, Trey Lance could end up going around the 10 to 15 mark. The Eagles are having a lot of quarterback struggles right now with Carson Wentz. I don't know how a lot of Eagles fans are going to feel about going another first-round route to pick a North Dakota State quarterback, but Trey Lance is he's a more athletic quarterback. He's been a little bit more consistent than Carson Wentz was at North Dakota State. I mean, Trey Lance has been nearly spotless. Obviously, a big change in competition going from the FCS to NFL levels, but there's been a lot of spotlight on just how Trey Lance does almost everything well as a quarterback. So I don't think any Eagles fans are going to be mad about getting just the prospect of getting another promising quarterback in the mix. Number 16, I have the Las Vegas Raiders going the edge rusher route and selecting Carlos Basham, the very stout defensive end edge rusher out of Wake Forest. One of the more underrated defensive ends that I think is going to fall in the first round of this draft. Having a solid season, the Raiders have a number of ways they could go to address needs on the defensive side of the ball. They've been gashed the last couple of weeks. Granted, they've played like the Bucs, Chiefs. It's not been an easy run for them. But I think Basham's a guy that can fall anywhere around like 12 to 25. About 6'5". What is he, like 230? About 230. Excuse me, not 230. I was going to say about 260, 275 pounds. Physically gifted defensive end, and pretty versatile, stout in the run and pass game. Number 17, I have the New England Patriots taking another quarterback off the board. Kyle Trask, quarterback out of Florida. Trask having a big year at Florida. Florida isn't looking, I think, the exact same that a lot of people thought they were going to. But Kyle Trask, nonetheless, is one of the best quarterbacks, I think, in the country, at least in terms of his NFL draft profile. Very accurate, has that athleticism factor to him. Good decision maker, stout in the pocket. And the Patriots are going to have to do something about addressing the Cam Newton situation. He's been okay at best, I think. And this is one of the worst Patriots teams we've seen in a while. I think that's a route that they might have to go. Number 18, I have the Browns addressing a need in the secondary and almost knocking out two birds with one stone with one of the best players left on the board at this point in my mock draft with Shaun Wade, cornerback out of Ohio State. If the Browns could keep someone in state and get someone as talented and NFL ready as Shaun Wade at number 18, that would be a big steal for them. I don't think there's a lot to say about this pick. In terms of Shaun Wade, good aggressive corner, very smart, good physical tools. You kind of get some form of the complete package. I don't know how much you're going to say he's going to be like the best lockdown corner in this class because I think Surtain has the higher ceiling. But again, you get a nice, safe, solid pick out of that. Number 19, I have the Colts going with what I think is a really intriguing fit, addressing, again, skill position needs. Kyle Pitts, the very, very dominant tight end out of Florida. I don't know the last time we saw a tight end that was this dominant in college, maybe Gronk. And Kyle Pitts is having a really, really big year at Florida. And if there's anything that has showed up for the Colts this year, is that they need to provide whoever the quarterback of the future is going to be for them a little bit more help at the skill positions. The offensive line's pretty good. The running game looks set for the future between Marlon Mack, Jordan Wilkins, Nyheim Hines, Jonathan Taylor. I miss him. So add in some skill position help. The tight ends, Mo Alley Cox, Jack Doyle. I mean, Jack Doyle had a buffoon of a fumble was that last weekend, 2 weekends ago against the Bengals. And I don't know how much of a long-term answer Mo Alley Cox is going to be. So that would provide a lot of versatile help for their receiving core. Number 20, I have the Niners selecting Creed Humphrey, interior offensive lineman and center out of OU. Yeah, I don't think there should be any way that Humphrey falls out of the first round. If you're just looking for a pure center prospect, I think Humphrey's the top in this class, but he can also slide over and play guard. The 49ers do need help along the interior offensive line. They're looking a lot better here lately, but just given how Kyle Shanahan likes to run his offense, how much they rely on the interior offensive line and how much they can swing out, I think they're going to need a guy that can handle that, can kind of handle that pace on the ground game. Something that Humphrey's definitely gotten in Lincoln Riley's offense at OU. Number 21, I have the Bears going the defensive line routes and solidifying a defense that's already playing really well this year. But Christian Barmore, defensive tackle out of Alabama, also taking one of the best players off the board at that point in the draft. The Bears have a few spots where they could need help. Again, I don't think anyone would be mad for the Bears about going maybe the running back or the quarterback route. But just as far as picking on the defensive side of the ball goes, I think the Barmore would be a really good option for them there. They do have some depth along the defensive line between Hicks, Eddie Goldman, but I don't know how much they have beyond those two D linemen. And you can switch Barmore between more of like a 3-4 defensive end and just maybe not as a nose tackle, but playing as a smaller defensive tackle. Number 22, I have the Bills going the cornerback routes. They already do have a solid defense, but they definitely need help in the secondary back there. And another first-round caliber prospect with Georgia cornerback Tyson Campbell. Tyson Campbell, again, I feel like will be a pretty solid first-round pick. He's a good lockdown corner, good at drawing turnovers, smart cornerback. He has the physical tools to translate immediately to the NFL. I think it's a nice fit there with the Bills. Number 23, I have the Titans going with kind of a steal here, shoring up their defensive line, which is an already good front seven, but with Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle out of Florida State. For a while there, it was uncertain about if Marvin Wilson was going to play for the 2020 season, but I think he's about the best player that Florida State has on either side of the ball. He's an absolute force up the middle. Again, a guy that I think has a really high ceiling come the time for him to go to the NFL. The Titans, again, 5-1. Losing it who they just lost to last weekend, but they look like the favorites out of the AFC South. They've got a good core there going for a while. I think they have more needs on the defensive side of the ball than the offense after they invested in Ryan Tannehill and then Derrick Henry last offseason. Number 24, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars addressing their quarterback need and going with an intriguing fit, Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama. Heisman contender this year. Mac Jones has shown a lot of accuracy, a little bit of mobility, throwing on the run to different parts of the field, but he's been able to make all the throws. And the way that Tua's fit in the Alabama offense translated to the NFL seems pretty natural with the way he's looked with the Dolphins offense so far. I don't think it's a bad fit for the Jaguars to try to take a flyer out on Mac Jones. Again, if they shore up the offensive line by picking Penei Sewell earlier in the first round, and they've got a decent set of skill position weapons. I think that they could have a dramatically improved offense next year and a good core to build around. Number 25, I have the Arizona Cardinals, a kind of good budding team in the NFC West, going the secondary route, selecting J.C. Horn, one of the good remaining first-round caliber cornerbacks. He's lengthy about 6'1", 6'2", 200 pounds out of South Carolina. South Carolina has been pretty good at churning out cornerback talent here lately, and I think J.C. Horn is the latest one that will probably go in the first round. The Cardinals do need some help at cornerback, among a few other spotty needs here and there on both sides of the ball. I think that they could go I don't know if they would really need to go the safety route, but they could look along the offensive line. They could look at linebacker, but I just think at this point, J.C. Horn would probably be the best option off the board for them. Number 26, I have the Saints going to provide some skill position help for however longer Drew Brees is going to be around or whoever's going to be behind him. Pat Freiermuth, really solid tight end out of Penn State. Penn State has a lot of first-round caliber talent going into the 2021 NFL draft. But Freiermuth, I think, behind Kyle Pitts is going to be the best tight end prospect in this class. Really sizable tight end, runs clean routes. He's solid in the blocking game. So I think you're going to get a versatile fit there. And I don't think it's really going to hurt for the Saints to upgrade their tight end position, kind of get a three-headed monster building out of that between Kamara, Michael Thomas, and then Pat Freiermuth. Number 27, I have the Green Bay Packers kind of giving some help behind Devontae Adams to Aaron Rodgers and going the wide receiver routes and selecting Devontae Smith, wide receiver out of Alabama. This would be a pretty good steal for the Packers, help provide some immediate help for Aaron Rodgers, another deep threat in the offense that could gash a lot of opposing defenses. Again, I think that's a pretty straightforward fit, not a whole lot to say there. Number 28, I have the New York Jets with their second pick in the first round, giving some help there to Trevor Lawrence and going with Brevin Jordan, tight end out of Miami. I think Jordan, Freiermuth, and then Pitts are the three first-round caliber tight ends. Brevin Jordan, you're probably looking at like a late first round, early to middle second round pick. But now with De'Aaron King in Miami, you're starting to see a little bit more of what these Miami running backs and wide receivers, tight ends can do. Brevin Jordan, really athletic. I think he's got a little bit of improvement to go for, just run blocking and pass blocking if he stays around, but he normally isn't. Normally isn't a blocking tight end by any means there. The Jets need a lot of help at the skill positions, and providing any weapons that they can for Trevor Lawrence would be big to build that foundation. Number 29, I have the Steelers. Again, there's a few routes they could go here, but kind of move it into the new era of building a new offensive line for whoever's going to take over after Ben Roethlisberger, whether that be a quarterback they draft in the future, Mason Rudolph, I don't know. But I have them going the offensive tackle route, Sam Cosmi, redshirt junior out of Texas. One of the better offensive line prospects in this class. I think he's having a big year at Texas, one of the higher graded just for PFF, run and pass blockers. One of the few consistent offensive linemen for Texas as well, about 6'7", 300 pounds, good fundamentals. He's pretty good all around. Again, I don't think he's going to be a superstar offensive lineman in the NFL by any means, but a solid, safe pick for the Steelers at 29. And number 30, I have the Ravens adding some skill position help in the receiving core for Lamar Jackson after they just signed Des Bryant early this week. Going with Terrace Marshall Jr., it would be really nice if the Ravens could provide like a deep threat or a home run threat for Lamar Jackson, someone that's got a lot of range. I think that there's two ways that they could go in this situation here. If there's a wide receiver need, both Terrace Marshall and Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota are left on the board. But I think Terrace Marshall is a little bit more capable of a deep threat. Rashad Bateman would be a little bit more of a versatile possession receiver. Number 31, I have the Buccaneers going with an edge rusher, the outside linebacker edge rusher out of Miami, or Quincy Roche. I think as far as current linebackers, pass rushers go on the Miami roster, Quincy's about the best that they have right now. And the Buccaneers, at least among needs on the defensive side of the ball, I think edge rusher is about the only way that they need to go. Their offense or their defense is looking really good for the future. Offensively, I mean, yeah, they could address some wide receiver help, running back help, but they're pretty good there already. I think given that Roche is a pretty established first-round prospect, local kid coming out of the U, I think it's a natural fit. Number 32, I have the Kansas City Chiefs, reigning Super Bowl champions, I guess, for this all intents and purposes, predicts them to repeat. I have them going with the offensive tackle sitting out of the 2020 season from Stanford, Walker Little. A former blue chip 5-star recruit. He's one of the best run and pass blockers in college football. It's a shame we don't get to see him this year. It's going to be a big gash for David Shaw and Stanford. But I think he's one of the more natural fits that the Chiefs could have. Come in, slot right away, give Mahomes some help in the trenches. The Chiefs could go the wide receiver route. I was having a tough time picking between Walker Little and Rashad Bateman for them. I think either way, it's a win-win. Both first-round caliber prospects. So that pretty much does it for my first 2021 NFL mock draft. Like I said, I'm going to take a bit deeper dive and go through my big board for each individual position and kind of round out from there, go with like a version 2.0 on mock draft, maybe dig into the second or third round. So that's pretty much it. See ya.